Welcome to another episode of Stuck in My Mind podcast. I am your host, WIZE, and my next guest is a renowned activist, author, and organizational psychologist who has dedicated his life to fostering healing and unity among people of diverse racial backgrounds. Welcome to the show, JD Mass.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure's all mine, man. I'm excited to talk to you, and
likewise. I love the name of the podcast.
Thank you. All right, so let's just jump right into it. What was it like growing up in a predominantly Black community, and how did that shape your perspective on racism?
All right, so truthfully, my parents purposely wanted to raise me in and around Black community, right? And the area that they chose in St. Louis was literally the next door municipality to where they grew up, in a predominantly wealthier white neighborhood. However, this neighborhood actually was 50-50, but the school system itself was predominantly Black, especially outside of two elementary schools, which had a much more mixed ratio. And so as we got into high school, it was 93% Black, which the cover of my book is my high school prom picture, in which I'm pretty much the most identifiable face from afar, right? And so having Black friends, we moved next door when I was 4 years old to my best friend's family. It was grandmother and grandpa, it was aunts and uncles and mom in the house, so got that full Big Mama's house kind of experience. And because of them, I met more Black friends. And because of that, I went into their, to meet their cousins, into communities of North St. Louis, which is a predominantly Black area. And so doing that, though, I got to experience a very welcoming feeling. I got to experience a lot of fun. I got talked about because not only am I of much lighter skin, but I'm also 5'3.5", and I need that half inch to round up to 5'4". And so, you get talked about and you get kind of acclimated to the system. And so early on, I'm crying a lot. And as I got more into middle school and high school, I was much more part of that culture and like to talk trash myself. But I did get to experience the difference in how I was treated, whether it was by the police, by, store people that were in stores and retail outlets, by, my family's community, or even in my family when my friends were around and when my friends were not around. And I got to see how they were affected by system decisions, and really got to experience all of that a lot of white folks just don't get a chance to experience. And so even those of us that have those Black friends that we love to brag about, they're Black friends that meet us at Starbucks and at Whole Foods and, in our work setting, and go to a baseball game together or things of that nature, but don't realize we're experiencing them in our white world. We're not going into their community and really getting a feel for how they, interact in that setting.
Okay. So how did your upbringing influence your decision to pursue activism and anti-racism work?
So truthfully, as I started to experience, especially from the police standpoint and the retail outlets, right? I got a story in my book where I talk about the police stopping me when I was a child walking through Clayton, where my parents grew up, in St. Louis. And my friends and I walking through there, and at 10 to 12 years old, I had never been given the talk, and we get stopped and told that they're searching for, suspicious people because there was a burglary and all of this, that, and the other. And they held us for so long. Eventually I broke down and said, well, what if we help you? And my friends went, no, we won't. Right. And so I got the talk from them on the way home that, no, they're not our friends. No, they don't they're not here to care for us. They're actually here to sort of punish us as a part of the system. So you got to watch yourself. And then I got to experience returning and exchanging merchandise at retail outlets that my friends were turned down from. And I would grab it in the parking lot and return the item immediately to the same exact person within 10 minutes and get the item, no questions asked, exchanged, no problem. And I saw like this power dynamic that I had. And it just made me want to really understand, why does racism exist? So beyond just the fighting of it, and that's wrong, and this is what it is, and that isn't racist, and that is racist, and all of that, I wanted to know why we developed such a culture of this. And then I started to really realize, like, there's more than just the racism part of our culture. There's a real difference in our approach to life and how we want to, as white culture, we want to make life work for us that gives us this advantage. And as Black culture and other indigenous cultures and Aboriginal culture, it's more about, okay, how does the earth work? How does life work? How can I be part of it? Let's enjoy this. Let's share this. Let's, be much more collective, and where we've been much more individualistic in our approach. And how do we make this fit for us? So we become more controlling and as part of our culture. And so I've been going through that psychology of how did it start? Why do we behave this way? Is it really that we're that different or evil, or did something happen that shifted us in this direction and we've been justifying it ever since?
Okay. So, what inspired you to write Race for What? And what message do you hope readers take away from it?
So what inspired me was seeing, so I was put on a path. I met my son's mom when he was 6 years old. He is now about to be 21. And she, being a Black woman that was very much into the community in Los Angeles, into, going and speaking in prisons. So she was very enrooted in this fight for justice and whatnot, and equality. And she told me, it's great that you know what you know, and it's great that you love us the way you do. But if you really want to help us, go over there and fix your people. And I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to be around white folks any more than she did at that time. And so I heard about this community called White People for Black Lives in LA. And then I was in this doctorate program, and there were these, quote unquote, good white folks that really wanted to make a difference. And what I realized is, you want to make a difference and you know nothing other than white culture. And because of that, you don't know who you're supposed to be making a difference in their lives for, and you don't even know how to appreciate and value them as humans either, and what they're going through and what they really want out of this struggle and what they want in this change. And so in that, I started to get involved and realized I'm almost like, as a doctorate, talking to a fifth grader or a kindergartner at times. There would be people that would join White People for Black Lives, and they had just realized that they have a privilege that their Black, coworker doesn't have, because their Black coworker was worried about coming, being pulled over by the police on the way to work with, some tags outdated for a little bit or something like that, right? Or they just saw, about Mike Brown or George Floyd happened during that time that I came back. But these different events that would happen that would make these aha moments, and now they want to go and lead the change. And so the process that I want to put us through is recognizing we don't need to lead the change. The biggest change in us is to let go of the control. It's to let go of the power. It's to let go of the idea that we need to lead anything, and we can learn the power of serving and supporting one another and the humanity behind the healing process, so that we can live in a much more fun, enjoyable, and humane society where we're all fed and taken care of and improving the quality of life.
Absolutely. What lessons did you learn from your time with the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem?
Okay, so on my book cover, kneeling next to me in our high school picture, is Nelly, the rap artist, right?
Yeah.
And through him and working with him, I met his uncle, who was part of the African Hebrew Israelite community in Israel. And I was going through a change of diet at the time, and I was becoming vegan, leaning towards vegan. I was kind of already pescatarian at that moment. And his uncle and I started talking about the biblical translations of the Bible and who the African Hebrew Israelite people were that the descendants of that actually wrote these teachings and as I started to learn about it, it just made much better sense than to think all these white folks, Moses and Abraham and everybody, was all these white folks that had all these great answers and lived in this very hot place where we couldn't survive with our lack of melanin in the same way. And it just didn't make sense. Our behaviors weren't reflective of what I was being taught in these teachings. And so when I met the African Hebrew Israelites, I saw an intentional community that really focused on humanity and health and improving the quality of life. And the level of intention that went into it, I didn't even realize how much I was ill prepared for it. Even though I had this great heart for, wanting justice and wanting to see Black, liberation and reparations and all of these different things, I still had only one point of view, and that is the American way only teaches us about colonized culture. We don't learn about any other cultures. We don't learn about any other ways. We think this is life, and this is only a world that we've created inside of life. And so when I opened my eyes up to it, I also learned that I had to go through a change process, a process of letting go. These steps that I'm asking all of us to take are steps that I went through, not saying these are the steps you need to go through, but these are the steps that I ended up having to take, and really appreciating the value of other cultures and really what reparations and healing looks like and what the psychological changes that need to take place to approach life differently and how to really intentionally create a world of humanity. And so that a lot of my experience with them is what led me to come up with the 7 steps I did.
Okay. How has your background in organizational psychology influenced your approach to activism and community building?
So the organizational psychology background really taught me how does culture develop. And that was the key kind of missing component. Okay, I can see the difference. I can see the love and the appreciation for the planet that Aboriginal and indigenous cultures have. I could see the harm that we're doing in our society. I don't still quite understand why. And when you start looking at how environment shapes our psychological factors and our approaches and how our emotions are determined by certain parts of our culture, I had to take a step back and go, I finally get to answer and look at theoretically why racism started. And so if you look at, this northern region of the world, you look at how the earth works, there's resources that the planet provides us, these nutrients, the vitamins and the minerals, and that make up our body in the same way that it's made up in the earth, and the earth provides that for us. So life already works in this cycle. Yet in this northern region where less melanated folks occupied, we didn't have all of those resources. So we had to go elsewhere. And we had 2 approaches we could have taken. We could have taken one like, glad these resources exist. Let's get them back to where we are and let's share in these. Or what possibly happened is if you and I thought that, there was a limited amount of water based on, us having 2 cups of water and that was all we thought that existed, then we would develop this zero-sum game. Every time I took a sip, you would think that's a sip that you and your family can't have. And so zero-sum leads us to the development of a psychology approach that we're in competition. And hence we came up with this word race, because we were racing to control these resources. Our economic systems are designed that there is a scarcity of resources on the planet. No, there is not. There was just a scarcity of resources in this northern region. And when we found other places where they lived an abundance, they were willing to share. And we still saw this zero sum. They have the resources. We don't. Oh my gosh, we need to take them. We need to do whatever we can to win this race, whether it's manipulate, whether it's to force, whether, we brought our diseases because our bodies aren't whole due to the fact that we don't have all of our natural elements that we need for our bodies to be healthy. So we have diseases that mostly started in these northern regions. So we're not connected to the planet. How could we appreciate the planet if it's not giving us all that we need at this time, when we don't have planes and trains and automobiles and internet to tell us where everything is? And so we didn't come with this idea that we could appreciate those willing to share. We wanted to enslave them. We wanted to trick them into giving us these resources and manipulate systems into making us feel like we're more worthy than they are. And all of these things just kept happening. And when something happens good for ourselves, we tend to justify it. Oh my goodness. No, that's not racist. No, it's not this. No, you could have done that. You could have done that. Instead, hey, someone else made it through the system and they did fine. What do you mean? Right. And we play in this role of justifying it, protecting it, denying it, trying to, hoard it, whatever we're doing. All of these emotional development come from that environment and are not due to the fact that we have less melanin in our skin directly, but indirectly, because we were in that environment. This is the culture that we shaped.
Okay. So how do you maintain hope and resilience when addressing such deeply rooted issues as racism?
Well, one, we've been waiting for it to change on its own for far too long. So it doesn't change on its own. It's exhausting trying to get people who have been deceived into believing that we should be leading the way, that our way is the way of life, to really let go of our privileges and power. It's exhausting to get them to want to share instead of hoard and control and protect and all of those things. But it's also a much more enjoyable experience to be on that flip side, to be in a level of sharing and supporting, to have that happen. And so my hope, and I have to maintain the hope, is that at some point we are waking up to that. And when you start waking up to that, the powers to be who want to keep that power are just going to squeeze tighter, because that's all we know. Right. And so I think that's where we're at. Life operates in a cycle. We rotate around the sun. We rotate each day. So things are cyclical, spiritually and in energy wise. At the end of this spiritual journey of colonialism, it's going to be ugly, because it was always ugly. And yet there is a opportunity to, the way the planet works, when lava comes up and out the volcano, it cleans that area. That is the richest soils for new ideas to grow. So as we go through this explosion, yes, it's going to potentially be painful, and it's very scary for a lot of white folks, especially right now, who are waking up to how horrible these ideas of this culture are. And they're very scared about the potential. If we can work them through the possibility that it, on the other side, instead of running from it, work through these changes, that there's a great beauty that exists for us. This earth already works. We don't have to control it. We don't have to manipulate it. We don't have to come up with genetically modified options for it. We just have to appreciate it and be one with it and enjoy it.
What do you believe are the biggest barriers to fostering unity among diverse racial groups?
The biggest barriers is ignorance and arrogance, right? Like we don't realize how purposely we were taught to be ignorant.
Yeah.
These school systems don't teach us about any other culture. So if we don't know, then we ignore that, right? I was in a college course, literally a college course where you're supposed to be growing the minds of our young adults, blossoming into adulthood. And the teacher told us in world history, we don't have to learn about Eastern cultures. They never changed. We're the ones that are dynamic and changing. We only need to focus on ourselves. And I went, did you really just say that in world history with such comfort? Right. So we taught this ignorance naturally. So, and then we're taught American exceptionalism, European exceptionalism, Greco-Roman exceptionalism. Oh, we're the greatest. We conquered. We didn't just destroy and cause trauma and harm. We've conquered. We've made ourselves look so important. So now we got this arrogance with our ignorance, and you don't know what you don't know, and you think you know because the the news just told you what was happening over in the black neighborhoods, and what's happening over in India, and what's happening over in these areas of Africa, and all the poverty. Look at all of this horrible stuff going on. These people don't know how to live civilized. We got all of that to untangle. The word that I love the most, that helps me the most, is the word prestige, right? That word was titled in a movie made about a magic show. And when I was with the African Hebrew Israelites, we all wondered, like, what the hell does prestige have to do with magic? When you look up the origin of the meaning of the word, conjuring tricks and creating illusions. Harvard is prestigious. Ferrari is prestigious. Having a very nice home and all this fancy artwork is prestigious. Living in these areas, going to these schools, all of these things are prestigious. Well, what if they're just tricking us into focusing on that consumption instead of focusing on the true enjoyable parts of life that we're connected to? So that is the challenge, untangling all of that prestige.
Awesome. So how can individuals begin to take accountability for the harm caused by racism in their communities?
First step is not to take a step and to really seek some understanding. Go and open your eyes and ears to the fact that Black people may be telling you the truth when they say this shit is messed up. Excuse my language. I don't know if we can.
Oh, you can cuss. You can cuss. Yeah,
Okay.
it's all good. We cuss.
Right. When they say that these people did this to these cops do this, we don't get the same access to resources. Go and experience that. So take a time to really understand and open your eyes to the fact that we have been taught a limited scope about life. I remember this one social engineer talked about, he developed a project called the Venus Project. And he talked about, you hear people say, it's human nature to steal and cheat and do all of these things, right? And in our society, we protect ourselves from those. Well, I got to buy a gun because somebody else has a gun. I got to protect myself because someone's trying to steal my things. I got to protect myself because someone's trying to cheat. Yes, those things are human nature. It's also human nature to love one another. It's also human nature to care for one another. It's human nature, and it feels good to support one another and serve one another. We could build systems around those virtues.
Yeah.
But we didn't. We built systems around this competition, which leads to cheating, into harming somebody, into wanting to battle them, and all of these things. And imagine you walk out your door and you see your enemy, you see your neighbor as your enemy instead of someone that can share with you. We're that far away from life, but this cycle can be broken through. So if we have the interest to just take time to really start to dissect that. So seek understanding and acknowledging so much of the harm of our culture. That can be a big starting place to wanting to let go of and move forward.
And that's one of the amazing things about the podcasting community is that we, especially us independent podcasters, we see the struggles we all go through in what we're doing. And I have friends that are white, black, Hispanic, Chinese, and we all come together, and it's beautiful to be able to
Right.
have someone of a different race be supportive of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And instead of putting you down, when you have each other's back and uplift each other, it's nothing but love. And that's what I love about podcasting, is that I've been able to connect with like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what race they are. It's been just, they see what the struggles you go through as a podcaster, and everything you've learned, and so when you start building these relationships and you start seeing, and the fact that I get to speak to people from all over the world.
Yeah.
And I learned so much from different cultures, and learned about different culture here, and what they're doing in Taiwan, or what they're doing in India, or what they're doing in Australia. Being able to have these conversations and learn that at the end of the day, we all want the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We all want to be happy. We want our family to be happy. We want to be healthy,
safe,
and yes, and we all basically want the same thing. But yeah, we get blinded by what the media and all these other outlets are putting out there, saying that, oh no, but at the end of the day, we're all the same. We want the same things.
Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is the greatness of America, especially, only lies in its potential, right? Because there are so many cultures that have come here in one place. It lies in that potential. If we can change our approach from seeing each other as competition to what you just talked about, curiosity, oh my goodness, what could I learn from something? How can I gain and enrich my life from somebody else? That experience in and of itself, that little shift in approach, that why right there, how I move forward. Oh, instead of seeing technology as a threat to my job, what if we all could share in this planet, and technology makes it so we don't have to work so hard, and we do get to enjoy more about each other, and learning and tasting each other's foods and whatnot, right? And we do get to just learn and share in that experience, and serve one another, and do, man, the shift, it's really not, it's very simple how we got to operate in order to really have an enjoyable life.
Yeah.
The challenge is either working through this cycle or stopping the momentum of it and shifting that approach. And that's where we're at. And these powers to be know that, and they are trying to hold on and squeeze us and keep us fearful and protective of what we have, and divided and individualistic. I mean, that's their goal. So they know they can't do it forever.
What role does education play in creating awareness and change around racial injustice?
Well, learning and teaching plays a wonderful role. We need to learn from the earth, to get back to the simple, and rebuild what truth is. We need to, value learning and some of these things that we've been taught not to value anymore. We need to appreciate the value of others. So learning is great. This education system, it can go. We need a very different approach. If we're not learning that how to improve the quality of our lives, then all of that other stuff, we're just learning to support the systems that are in place.
Yeah.
We're being trained, we're not being taught. And we need an education system that teaches us and that inspires learning and creativity, right? Creativity and life are the same.
And that's a lot of things that's some of the things that we've missed. Like they've taken music and art and everything
Of course.
out of schools, and it's more programming so that you can learn that you need to be at a 9 to 5 instead of really learning about life, instead of
Yeah,
learning the key necessities of being alive.
right. Yep. I mean, that shows us that's one way of showing us this system is designed without love in mind, right? How we feed our children, the system is designed without love in mind. How we treat pregnant women who are going to give birth, the system is designed without love in mind. How we treat those who are sick, how we treat our elders, all of these things, how we treat somebody who has an accident and all of a sudden they can't pay their bills. Instead of having a support system to help lift them up, we punish them. And now it's more costly to be, lower class, lower economic class status than it is to be upper. Come on, this system is designed without love in mind. And all we have to do is just get to that point of curiosity and just touching the grass and seeing the trees and seeing how life works, and just it's so simple and we can get there. We just need that real aha moment for the rest of us to figure this out.
Definitely. So how do you balance your entrepreneurial spirit with your passion for activism and community work?
Boy, if I could tell you that, I wouldn't be so doggone exhausted right now. I'm, I'm just trying to give myself grace right now, find some level of enjoyment where I can. I really do my best to pay attention to the grass and to the trees and to life, and not get caught up. Because sometimes I'll ask people, when you look outside, what do you see? Do you only see the cars and the roads and the buildings and the advertisements and the names and all of that, or do you see the trees and the grass and the flowers and the life? Do we get so mad that daggone life just grew through our crack in our in our concrete? But that's life. And that's what gives me hope too, is because we're not stopping life. We're making our lives miserable right now, but you're not going to stop life from happening. If we can reshape that and recognize how little we've been taught about it, then right outside of where I'm living, where all the corn and the soybeans are being grown, we could be growing broccoli and apples and strawberries and all kinds of wonderful things, instead of this manufactured idea that there's not enough to share. There's so much to share, and we could just have so much of that. And just, that part, having conversations, meeting you gives me inspiration and kind of gives me some balance in that.
Yeah. So you mentioned Nelly earlier. What challenges did you face while working on his early business ventures, and what did you learn from that experience?
So one, I learned what white saviorism is. I was raised in a way that made understanding the business climate much easier for me. So I was given that role, but I didn't have to do it like I know it. I know what's better for you. I know you want me to go get that nice car. I'm going to go get a lesser car. I'm going to finance it in my name. I'm going to take the money you wanted to show me love with and buy me that nice car, and I'm going to hire somebody else. Sure, that might have been the better thing to do business-wise, but I did it in a way like, I got this. Don't worry about it. You do your thing. And that didn't build trust. That was one thing I learned. The second thing I learned is wealthy people don't like other wealthy people either. And so they're all competing. Like, at what point aren't you satisfied with your own level of wealth that you can enjoy this planet? So I watched, as we tried to get things done in St. Louis, these wealthy building owners downtown stop each other from developing their building, whether it was with nightlife or restaurants or housing or whatever it was. They spent so much time stopping the other person in the idea that they were winning, that St. Louis suffered as a city. We don't have a vibrant downtown culture. because these people stopped that. And so I watched that. I was like, wow, this whole culture is about just crabs in a barrel and not recognizing the barrel is not natural to life. That's not the entire planet. It's just a barrel. And so that's not the natural habitat for us all as humans. So we didn't get a whole lot of things done that way. And then you get into Hollywood and who's controlling it and who's making all these decisions and how they're motivated by it and how they're using analytics. And you start to recognize, oh, analytics is just because we're not in tune with our natural creativity to be the eye test and the sound test and the what's fun and let's try this. We're trying to control and win. So we're using analytics and everything. Oh, we got to win. We got to win. And we're making everything in entertainment less enjoyable because we're trying to win this as a business instead of what entertainment really is to inspire creativity and be artistic and enjoyable. All of these things is what I've experienced. And then the last point is I experienced that I come from a place of privilege. So I can remember a conversation early on in his career where these white guys that had been very helpful to his career were talking to him in a way that I don't know if you remember. Damon Wayans had what he called his last stand-up. And it was right after, or it might have even been during the time of In Living Color. Yeah. And his last stand-up, he had a part where he goes, white people, when you get rich as a black man, white people come and talk to you differently. So now, Damon, now that you've made millions of dollars, do you still think that there's racism in America? Right? And he goes, well, no, sir. Well, if it is, sir, I shows ain't seen none. Right? And so that was a line that I loved. And so I remember being in this meeting and it just became so obvious to me. These white guys were trying to get Nelly to do that. And I started to say, well, Nelly, now that you've made all these millions, and he looked at me like, if you don't shut the blank up right now, that's your mission. Don't make that mine right now. Let me continue to make some money. I haven't gotten far enough in this, right? And so I could remember feeling like, oh yeah, I didn't come from his background. I came from mine. So we're not all in this at the same point. I need to be more conscious of, it's like when I cuss out the police, I could get away with it. My black friends would go to jail for having a traffic warrant that they probably wouldn't have gone to jail for had I just kept my mouth quiet, even though I thought I was doing the right thing because we were being harassed. So it's all of those.
Oh, so you was that white dude that be cursing on mine. Well, chill, bitch.
Yeah, exactly. Thinking that I'm doing the right thing. Woo. Yeah. Watching my friend drive off, calling my dad like, hey, can we get him out of, So, yeah.
So how do you approach conversations about racism with individuals who are resistant or defensive?
Well, I have opened the eyes of many by talking about this scarcity idea. I don't try to fight them, right? Like oppose them necessarily. Sometimes I just try and find things that we're naturally going to agree on so we can form some level of connection. And then they become more uncomfortable with their own racism. I did this at Ohio State. First time I had white friends in abundance in my life. I was in this dorm with these white kids. We developed friendships, and you could see that when they saw me interact with black folks, and they were like, wait a second, you just interacted with us, and now you interacting with them, and you got this whole code switching kind of thing. The example and how I got along with them. I got along with the football players. Now, all these white kids want to be cool with the football players, right? This is Ohio State University. So they would see that, and now all of a sudden they would start to feel uncomfortable in their own approach because they recognize I don't have the experience to even know that what I'm feeling is true or valid. I just feel it because I've been trained to feel it this way.
Yeah.
And so I know that there's a lot of people that just want to check every time someone says something racist. Nah, man, be understanding. They were trained that way too. Not that we should let them get away with it, but but fighting them ain't gonna make them go back and go, yeah, you were right. Nah, it's gonna make them be like, F you, come next time, I'm gonna come with my dukes up. Right. And so if we're gonna really inspire change, it's to get them like, hey, well, why do black people, kill themselves? Okay, well, what does a scarcity mentality do, and how did we create scarcity amongst them in order to do that? And how were they behaving when we weren't? When there was segregation and they built Black Wall Street and all of these things, and we tore those things down. How do we do all? Well, yeah, now that you put it that way. Or I'd be afraid to go into a black community. Why? Why would you be so afraid? Because you know who's going to be more afraid that you make it out of there alive? Black folks that are living in that community. Because white folks coming into their community makes the police on high alert. And if something happens to you, somebody's going down, whether there's an investigation as to who did it and why or what. That's more fearful. And they go, wow, you're right. Where's your proof that black folks are out for revenge? Right? There is none. Oh, wow, you're right. Okay, so some of these things that you are feeling are just trained in you, and I don't have to attack you to get you to start to open up to those things.
Okay. What do you envision for the future of racial unity, and how can we all play a part in making it a reality?
So I think the economics or social systems swing on just like an emotion does on a pendulum. And right now, after George Floyd, and it looked like we were really coming together, there has been this huge push to really stop that and stop making white people feel bad in this essence.
Yeah.
That population is growing smaller and smaller. And that population of white folks that are very supportive of these ideas of getting rid of the illegal aliens, that came over here, the whatever, the undocumented,
They're stealing our
immigrants,
jobs and everything.
stealing our jobs and doing all of this. That group is just loud. It's not large. And so as that's happening, that group is also one switch away from recognizing they weren't our problem. And so yes, hence this CEO just got mauled down. It wasn't by somebody, wasn't by an undocumented immigrant, right? It was by a rich family's kid.
Yeah.
Even they don't have the relationships because we don't just come from a truly honest place. We don't even know how. We're so confused. But there is this level of youth that have gone more and more, starting with our generations, gone more and more into an understanding that I have all kind of friends from all kind of backgrounds, and this really doesn't make much of a difference. And so I just think we're at that point of we have to just push through this last nastiness where these few people control so much to recognize our own strength as people and the own beauty of sharing and whatnot. There's potential with blockchain that we could develop a whole new monetary system where we actually learn money is an exchange of energy. It's just that medium for the exchange of energy. It doesn't build anything. It doesn't create anything. It doesn't grow anything. It's just a medium of exchange.
Yeah.
And we could approach how we deal with all of that, which is why they're so telling us cryptos are so bad, because they're using the same approach as if the American dollar is backed by anything other than military threat that we will come bomb you if you don't accept our dollar as the most valuable.
Yeah. Man, this has been an amazing conversation.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming in and spending time with me here on the show. now we've come to the part of the show where you get the solo screen and you get to plug away, let everybody know where they can find you, where they can get the book, everything.
So everything can be found on raceforwhat.com. You can go to my social media links. Most of them are at raceforwhat or JD Mass PsyD. Get the book. There's 7 steps to healing. There's great stories that hopefully you can connect to. And we're really approaching anti-racism from a healing standpoint and from really dissecting the why and not just arguing about what's racist. Look out for more community development. I'm developing a whole course on the with the Anti-Racism Academy on the 7 steps to healing that will take people through a journey of self-reflection and understanding our society, hopefully freeing us up from some of the guilt and shame and into a place where we can see the path towards building this world of humanity. To me, humanity is achievable. And lastly, look out for Race for What comedy tour. We're going to start off in St. Louis. We're going to do some panel discussion mixed with some stand-up comedy and live music. We're going to have a humor and healing comedy tour coming soon. So all of that's going to be going on.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Thank you, JD, once again for being such a great guest.
Thank you, sir.
And anything I can do to help support you in your cause, let me know. Once you get the comedy show launched and everything, let me know so I can promote it on the show and everything.
Thank you.
But don't leave just yet. Let me close out the show and we'll chat a little bit off the air. But
for sure,
man, thank you, man. This is a powerful show, and I greatly appreciate you coming through and sharing your story and sharing all the wonderful things you're doing out there to make this a better world.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate everybody that's doing this type of work.
All right, brother. Don't leave just yet.
All
right, everybody. Another great show. Greatly appreciate everybody who's tuned in. If you haven't catch the live, catch the replay. Hit the notification bell. Share this, like it, please. This is a powerful episode. People need to really check this episode out. As always, big shout out to my Real Wise fam, Poppy J, Brandy J. Love you guys. Shout out to the boss lady. Love you and appreciate everything you do. Big shout out to JD Mass for coming through and really dropping some knowledge and really enlightening us on everything that's going on in the world today. And as always, a big shout out to all the essential workers out there. God bless y'all. Be safe. You know how your boy Wise does it. Peace out.